Remember guys, when we talked about addition reactions, we said that addition reactions, those reactions actually happen on alkenes, right? Specifically on alkenes. But elimination reactions, they can actually happen on alkanes. So it can either be on alkanes or it can be on haloalkanes. So elimination can happen on alkanes, haloalkanes, as well as alcohols. So these three groups of organic compounds are the organic compounds in which can undergo elimination reaction. So elimination reaction is the opposite of addition reaction, because remember guys that when we're doing addition reaction, we were adding a new thing, such as, for example, we say that when we are adding a water, or let's say when we're adding hydrogen, we are doing hydrogenation, right? We are adding hydrogen, okay? And then when we are adding maybe a hydrogen halide, we are doing hydrohalogenation. It means that we're adding a hydrogen that is having a halogen. Or we can do an addition of water as well. So you can add water in the presence of sulfuric acid as a catalyst, because remember we said that we need a catalyst. And the other condition that you need to mention here that we forgot to mention is heat. So we actually need heat. Usually we need this heat in form of steam. So we basically want heat in form of steam for us to be able to add water, which is known as hydration. Okay, so now when we are doing the elimination reaction, we are just going to be removing something from a compound. It's the opposite of adding something to a compound. So the first elimination that we are going to look at, it is the opposite of hydrogenation, meaning that we are now removing a hydrogen. We are no longer adding a hydrogen. Because remember guys, when we said hydrogenation, we were adding a hydrogen. You guys still remember, right? When we said hydrogenation, we were adding a hydrogen gas. But now we are going to do the opposite of adding a hydrogen gas. So it means we want to move from an alkane and we want to remove hydrogens from it. So it's known as dehydrogenation. So we just add the D on top. So it's dehydrogenation. So I'm going to write here dehydrogenation. So the reaction known as dehydrogenation, it usually happens on alkanes. So it usually happens on alkanes. This is basically when we are having an alkane that is losing two hydrogens, or we are removing two hydrogens from the compound, usually from the alkane. So dehydrogenation, we do it for alkanes. So whenever you say an alkane, the first possible reaction that you must think of is dehydrogenation. But I told you guys that when you see an alkene, the first possible reaction that you must think of, what did I say is the first possible reaction for alkenes? What did I say is the reaction that happens to alkenes, guys? Those who are attending the session. Can you guys relate?
Hydrogenation.
Yes, it's addition reactions. So alkenes, they only undergo addition reaction, guys. Please stick it to your mind. Alkenes only undergo addition reactions. Okay, but now once we have got alkanes, they can undergo elimination reaction, and the first elimination that alkanes can go through, it is dehydrogenation, whereby we are removing hydrogen. And for us to be able to do that, the catalyst that we need, or the reaction conditions that we need, if they can ask for the reaction conditions that we need, or the conditions that we need to be able to remove a hydrogen, we still need the same conditions as we did for us to add hydrogens. So the reaction conditions that we need here, it is still the same catalyst. So we need a catalyst, and our catalyst can either be palladium, Pd, or it can be platinum, Pt. This is capital letter P, by the way, or it can be nickel, Ni. So these are the three possible catalysts that we can use to be able to remove a hydrogen from an alkane. So let's just make a general example. Let's say that we've got an alkane. This is an alkane. We are going to just make propane. This is propane. Do you guys all see that this is propane?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we are having a propane, and this propane here, it is an alkane, right? So we're having a saturated compound, which is an alkane. So when you want to dehydrohalogenate it, it simply means that here at this point we are not adding anything. So I don't expect to see a plus in this reaction because we are actually removing from this compound. So here we're just going to show an arrow showing that this is our reaction. And then we are going to use the catalyst. Maybe let's just pick nickel, for example. So if we use the catalyst, which is nickel, what will happen? We will actually go to two consecutive carbons here, and we are going to remove two hydrogens from them. So let's say I just remove these two hydrogens that I've circled. So imagine, guys, that I remove these two hydrogens. If I remove these two hydrogens, or when I remove these two hydrogens, do you guys realize that these two carbons, they are left with no complete bonds? Because remember, guys, that each and every carbon must be surrounded by 4 bonds in total. So here I had some hydrogen atoms here, but because I am doing dehydrogenation, if I remove them, do you realize that, guys, we are going to remain with carbons that do not have a bond, that do not have an extra bond, because we need 4 bonds in total. Do you guys realize that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so basically we have something like this. We'll have something like this when we remove our hydrogens. So this is a carbon, this is a carbon, and then this is H there, this is H, and then this is H. So now we're not going to write these hydrogens again, guys. These two hydrogen atoms here, we're not going to rewrite them again. Reason being, we have eliminated them, or we have removed them, because dehydrogenation is a removal of H2. So we have removed two hydrogens. So after removing two hydrogens here, basically we are left with these carbons, and these carbons, they are now having a shortage of bonds. They've got a shortage of bonds, meaning that all of them, they must have 4 bonds in total, but these are having 3 bonds. You can see that here we're having 1, 2, 3 for the first carbon. Even for the second carbon, we've got 1, 2, 3 bonds, and that is not enough because carbon needs to have 4 bonds in total so that it can be stable, or so that it can have a full octet. Carbon need to have 4 bonds in total. So what can we do now, guys? Are we going to just put our hydrogens back again, or what can we do so that these carbons can have at least 4 bonds in total?
So we can form a double bond in between the carbons.
Yes, we can actually form a double bond in between the carbons. So basically, when we remove the two hydrogens, these two carbons will now form a double bond between them so that they can be stable, so that they can have at least 4 bonds around them, or maybe let's just say 8 electrons around them. So basically here, in other words, you can see that we have transformed our alkane into an alkene. So we have transformed our alkane into an alkene. But the other product that we are also going to have, since we are removing these two hydrogens, these two hydrogens, they'll be connected with one another to form H single bond H, or you can say H2. So basically, whenever you are doing this dehydrogenation reaction, you are taking alkane and you are doing what? You are removing two hydrogen atoms on consecutive carbons. You remove the hydrogens on carbons that are following each other. For example, we are taking this carbon here and this carbon here. So when you remove these two hydrogens from them, you are actually removing the hydrogens from two carbons that are bonded to one another, or from two carbons that are following each other. That's where you remove your hydrogens, because dehydrogenation simply means removing these hydrogens. So we are removing these hydrogens. So these two carbons, they will now be left with only 3 bonds. These two will only be left with 3 bonds after removing the hydrogens. But because we know that carbon can never be stable with only 3 bonds, because they were in a situation like this, so carbon can never be stable with only 3 bonds. So to maintain or to retain that stability, these have to form a double bond between them. So now it's no longer an alkane, it's an alkene now. So we have changed the homologous series by doing this elimination reaction. And you guys realize that this is actually the opposite, or this is the reverse of hydrogenation. It is like completely opposite, because during the hydrogenation reaction, when we were adding a hydrogen atom, we started with an alkene. Do you still remember, guys? We started with an alkene, which was propene. That's what we did last time, okay, which was propene, and we added 2 hydrogens so that we can form an alkane. That is what we did when we did hydrogenation. But now what are we doing? We are doing dehydrogenation. So we are doing the opposite of hydrogenation. So it means that we are taking an alkane, we are turning it into an alkene, and we use the reagent, a catalyst such as a Pd, which is palladium, Pt, which is platinum, or nickel, which is Ni there. So this is my catalyst. So this nickel, it is serving as a catalyst. Do you guys all get the sense here?
So
is anyone confused, guys? Let's just do an example. Let's just say you have got this compound is also an alkane. Once you see an alkane, guys, you must think of elimination reaction as well as substitution reaction, those two. But we're still going to do substitution. But for now, since you guys know elimination and addition, once you see an alkane, think of an elimination reaction, because you cannot add anything to an alkane. Why can't you add anything to an alkane? Because alkanes are saturated. The term saturated, guys, it simply means that something is full. Okay, if you say that something is saturated, it means that it is full, or it is complete. Just like these alkanes have got single bonds between their carbons. We say that they are saturated. It means that they cannot accommodate any other new thing. It means that you cannot add any other different substance to them. So alkanes are saturated, they are full, all their bonds are full. But when you go to an alkene has a double bond. So an alkene, if you go to an alkene, it has a what? It has a double bond. So this double bond, it can actually break so that you can accommodate the addition of 2 other things. That is why we say that alkenes can undergo addition reactions, because alkenes are unsaturated. Alkenes, they've got an extra bond that is always willing to work. Just like this alkene here, this is an alkene, it had a double bond, but it breaks that double bond. We end up having an OH here. So an addition reaction can take place in an alkene because alkenes are unsaturated. But when it comes to alkanes, we say that alkanes, they are saturated. Alkanes are saturated. So if we say that alkanes are saturated, simply means that they don't have any extra bonds. They don't have multiple bonds to be able to use to add more things on them. Do you guys understand why alkanes can never undergo addition reactions?
yes,
Yes, it's because they are saturated. They do not have any multiple bonds that can be used to add new substances. But if you are taking an alkene is a double bond. You can add something to it. So let me just say here we do our hydrogenation reaction. Maybe this time we use palladium as a catalyst. I'm going to say palladium and write cat inside the bracket. So when you're using palladium or using nickel or using platinum, all of those 3, as long as you see any one of those, then it means that we are doing a dehydrogenation reaction. So here, let's say now we are doing a dehydrogenation reaction on these ones. Let's just say maybe our carbons are being eliminated from these 2. Let's say our carbons are being eliminated from these 2, for example. If our carbons, if our hydrogens that are being eliminated are these 2 hydrogens, it means that we'll end up having something like this. We'll end up having H, we'll end up having C, and then we'll end up having C, another H there, another H there, SC, and H, and H, SC, with an H, and then here we've got a single bond C. Let's just put a single bond for now, and then an H, and this way. I think this is a complete. So when it's something like this, do you realize that here, the moment, because we have removed here, we have chosen to remove these two hydrogens. So we've chosen to remove these two hydrogens, but in realistic sense, we can never remove this other hydrogen because it is on a carbon with many hydrogens. Let's just remove these two rather. Let's just say here we are going to remove the hydrogens on carbon 2 and carbon 3, these two. So we are going to remove the ones on carbon 2 and carbon 3. So after removing these two hydrogens, the one on carbon 3 and carbon 2, you guys can see that we have removed them. This is our carbon 2, right? And then this is our carbon 3. We have removed a hydrogen. We have removed two hydrogen atoms here. So after removing these two hydrogen atoms, these carbons, they are now lacking a bond because they must have 4 bonds surrounding them in total. So they must have 4 bonds surrounding them in total. So for us to end up having 4 bonds here, the carbon number 3 and carbon number 2, they must form a double bond so that each and every one has got 4 bonds around them. So the double bond will form between carbon 3 and carbon 2 because that is where we have removed our hydrogens. And now it changes just from being an alkane, which is a saturated hydrocarbon, to being an alkene, which is an unsaturated hydrocarbon. And we say that here another product that we are going to have, it is H2, which is a hydrogen in the hydrogen. It's like 2 hydrogen atoms that we're having here. So do you see, guys, that we're just doing the opposite of hydrogenation, opposite of addition reactions? Do you guys all see that?
Yes,
Okay. So now let's move. If you guys are seeing, that's awesome. Let's now move to another type of elimination reaction. Let's say we want to remove a halogen, for example. So we want to remove a halogen. So we want to do dehalogenation. So dehalogenation, we are going to remove a halogen. So dehalogenation. So dehalogenation, we are removing a halogen. We're actually removing 2 halogens. So this is when we have got something like this. Maybe let's just say here this is a removing of a halogen. So during dehalogenation, we are removing a halogen. A halogen usually we represent it using the letter X. So we are removing X, and X2 is a halogen. Remember, the halogens are those elements found on group number 7. So if we take, for example, a compound such as this, let's just say this is a compound and it is having Cl here and it is having Cl here. So do you guys realize that this is a haloalkane? This is a haloalkane, and our haloalkane, it is having 2 halogens. So you can do dehalogenation if you have got a haloalkane with 2 halogens. This is a haloalkane, but this haloalkane has got 2 halogens. Do you guys see the halogens that we have for this compound? Do we all see the halogens that we have for this compound specifically?
yes, sir.
Yes, so in this case, we're having 2 Cl groups. So we've got a Cl here. These are all chloros. So we've got a Cl here. We also have a Cl here. So we can do dehalogenation mechanism, meaning that we are removing the 2 halogens that we have. So we do dehalogenation. Now, what reaction conditions do we need for dehalogenation to take place? We need an unreactive solvent. So if they ask of reaction conditions or what conditions do we need to meet, or what conditions do we need to use for this reaction to take place? We need an unreactive solvent. We need an unreactive solvent. So we need a solvent that will not react with our haloalkane. So this haloalkane, if we take an unreactive solvent and then we remove these two halogens from this haloalkane, we are going to end up with something like H, and then this is going to be C, H, H, and then this is going to be C, H, and then C, H, H. Do you guys realize that, guys, after removing the Cl's here, after removing these chloro groups, the Cl and the Cl on the other side, these two carbons now, they are now missing bonds. These two carbons here, they are now having only 3 bonds surrounding them, and we need carbon to at least have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 4 bonds. We need 4 lines around carbons to show that we have got 4 bonds. So here it means that here we will have to form a double bond between these two carbons, just as we were doing. So when you are taking a haloalkane and we are dehalogenating it, or we are removing X, or we are removing these two halogens, we take a haloalkane, specifically the one with 2 halogens. That is the one that can undergo dehalogenation. But if it doesn't have 2 halogens, guys, it cannot undergo dehalogenation. So we take a haloalkane, and that haloalkane must have 2 halogens. And then you take away those 2 halogens, you remove those 2 halogens. And they must be the same, these 2 halogens, is a Cl and a Cl. So we remove those 2 halogens, causing these carbons to be unstable, causing these carbons to have only 3 bonds surrounding them. And since they now have only 3 bonds surrounding them, what will happen? They will form a double bond between them. These 2 carbons will form a double bond between themselves. And then we are also going to have another product, which is going to be plus Cl, Cl, or you can say this is plus Cl2. This is the same thing. Okay, because remember, guys, that here we were removing the Cl and the Cl, right? So we are removing this chloro group here and this chloro group on the other side. So when we remove these 2 chloro groups, they will actually bond with one another to form this chloride gas, Cl2. Do you guys see how a dehalogenation occurs?
Yes, sir.
Yes, but for that we need an unreactive solvent. So here there are no rules such as Markovnikov for dehalogenation and dehydrogenation. They don't apply. Now we go to the third type of elimination reaction that we have. The third type of elimination reaction that we have, it is dehydrohalogenation. So this is dehydrohalogenation. Dehydrohalogenation. This is the opposite of hydrohalogenation. Remember, hydrohalogenation, we are adding a hydrogen halide, or remember hydrogen halide, guys. I told you that a hydrogen halide is something like this. A hydrogen halide, it's simply a hydrogen that is bonded to a halogen atom. This halogen, it can be anything, bromo, it can be chloro, it can be fluoro, anything. But basically, if you see something like this, HBr, this is a hydrogen halide because it has got a hydrogen on one side. On the other side, we've got a bromine, and a bromine is a halogen, right? If we have got something like hydrogen chloride, HCl, hydrochloric acid, we have got what? We have got a hydrogen on one side and a halogen on the other. So these are hydrogen halides. So when we are doing dehydrohalogenation, we are removing a hydrogen halide. So here when we are doing this, we are removing a hydrogen halide. Remember, this HX is just a general way of saying a hydrogen halide. It's just a general way of saying that here we have got a hydrogen that is bonded to a halogen. So we are removing a hydrogen halide. So this one is very important, guys. Dehydrohalogenation is very important. So this reaction actually happens on haloalkanes as well, but these haloalkanes, they must only have one halogen. So this reaction, it happens on haloalkanes. This reaction happens on haloalkanes, and these haloalkanes must have one halogen substituent. So this is a different case, guys, compared to what we had before. When we were doing dehalogenation reaction, we had a haloalkane with two halogens. There's a difference there, guys. We had a haloalkane and it had two halogens. For this specific example, we had two Cls. All of these two are halogens. That is what we're doing when we did dehalogenation. Dehalogenation can only happen to a haloalkane that has got two halogens. But now, what if your haloalkane has got only one halogen? What if your haloalkane is something like this? Maybe this is C, this is C, this is C, this is C, and then maybe we say that here we've got a Br, and then we put hydrogens. We put hydrogens on the rest of the carbons. So do you see now that this is a haloalkane? Yes, but this haloalkane, it only contains, or it only consists of one halogen, and in this case our halogen, it is bromine, which is Br, the bromo one. So the bromine is our halogen. There's only one halogen in this haloalkane. It's not the same thing as a haloalkane that has got two hydrogens. Yes, Tahazo.
So like with the dehydrohalogenation, since like we are trying to actually eliminate this, or let me just say we're trying to create a double bond, we are also going to take like the hydrogen along with the halogen.
Yes, we are going to take both of them. That is why we say that it is dehydrohalogenation. So we are removing a hydrogen as well as a halogen. That's why we say that we are removing a hydrogen halide, because we are removing a hydrogen as well as a hydrogen, as well as a halogen, I mean. So now, for this reaction to occur, for us to be able to be able to do this reaction, it's very important that we have a concentrated strong base. So basically, dehydrohalogenation, when they ask you of the reaction conditions, or the conditions necessary, or the conditions that must be met when we are doing this reaction so that it succeeds, the reaction conditions that we are going to need here, it is a strong base. We need a strong base. So this reaction actually takes place in the presence of a strong base. If you just say a base, it's not true. You say it's a strong base. So it takes place in the presence of a strong base, and this base must be concentrated as well. So it's a strong base that is concentrated. It must not be dilute. It means that it must not be diluted by water. It must just be concentrated. It must be the way it is, but it's a strong base. The examples of strong bases that we have, it is sodium hydroxide, or we can use potassium hydroxide. So sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide are examples of what? Are examples of strong bases that we have. So we need a strong base, a concentrated strong base, so that the dehydrohalogenation reaction can take place. And we also need to have ethanol as a solvent. So for this to happen, we need to have ethanol as a solvent. We need to have ethanol as a solvent. Ethanol, it is just an alcohol. Guys, you know that ethanol is an alcohol having two carbons, right? So ethanol is a solvent. So we need it as a solvent so that this reaction can be able to take place. And another third condition that we need, again, it is strong heat. So we need heat under reflux. Usually we say that we need heat under reflux. We need heat under reflux. So heat under reflux, it is very strong heat. So we need heat under reflux. So it is this heat that is that we need so that this reaction can take place. So these are the three conditions that are necessary for the dehydrohalogenation reaction to take place. So first is the strong base. It must be concentrated, such as sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. And then we also need heat, strong heat under reflux. So we need strong heat. You can say strong heat, or you can say heat under reflux. And then you also need to dissolve this reaction inside ethanol. So ethanol must be your solvent. So it means that for this reaction to take place, we need these three conditions to be met. It's a strong concentrated base, it's an ethanol as a solvent, as well as strong heat under reflux. So whenever they ask you the reaction conditions, or whenever you see these reaction conditions, you must know that this is an elimination reaction. So now, how does this elimination happen? We start here with a haloalkane, and our haloalkane has got one halogen. So this is a haloalkane, one hydrogen. Okay, or with one halogen, of course. So it's a haloalkane that is having only one halogen. In this case, we only have got one bromine there. That is our halogen. So now, how do we now eliminate this? We are actually going to eliminate this by adding this. First of all, we are going to add this KOH. We need this strong base, strong acid, all of that. So we are going to need to have KOH here, or you can use NaOH, any of those strong bases, guys. You can use NaOH or you can use KOH, any one of them. So you can use NaOH or you can use KOH. And then you are also going to need ethanol as a solvent as well. Okay, so your reaction must have a haloalkane that is having one halogen. In this case, it's having bromine as the halogen. And then now you add what? You add your KOH. This KOH is just a strong base. You can use KOH or you can use NaOH. KOH is a potassium hydroxide, and then a NaOH, it is this thing. It is sodium hydroxide. You can either use sodium hydroxide or you can use potassium hydroxide, but as long as a strong base that is concentrated, any one of these two. And then now, what is the product that we're going to get after having this? So basically, we are going to remove a bromine here. That is the halogen that we are removing. And we are going to remove a hydrogen here on this carbon. We are still going to explain why are we actually removing a hydrogen on this carbon. So we remove a hydrogen and a Br. That's how you say that it's a hydrohalogenation. So it means that you are going to be left with H, C, H there, and then H there, and you're going to have C, H, then you're going to have C, H, then you're going to have C with 3 hydrogens. Do you guys see that here I've removed the Br and I've removed also the H. I have removed this H here and I also removed this Br. So by default, these two carbons, this carbon 1 and this carbon 2 here and carbon 3, these two carbons, they now lack bonds. So they now need to have another bond. So we said, guys, that since they are now having only 3 bonds, they are going to form a double bond between themselves. So they are going to form a what? A double bond between them. So if they form a double bond, or when they form a double bond between themselves, now they are going to be having 4 bonds each. And now this becomes a what? An alkene. But now the thing is, did you guys notice that the hydrogen that I chose to remove, it is this one? But I could have also removed this other hydrogen. Now let's go to a 10 minutes break so that we can try to find out why am I actually removing this hydrogen and not the other one on the other carbon.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Edu-ca-te is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
So we're removing a hydrogen and a halogen, and we say that this reaction, it can only happen on a haloalkane that has got only one halogen. It can never happen on a haloalkane with two halogens, because if a haloalkane has got two halogens, it will undergo dehalogenation. If it has got two halogens, such as here, this one has got Cl and this one has got also Cl. We have got two halogens on the haloalkane. This one can undergo halogenation. But now when it comes to this dehydrohalogenation, we need it to be strictly one halogen. So when it's strictly one halogen, it means that here we have to remove what? We have to remove this Br here. So we are removing this Br here, and we are also removing this hydrogen. Okay, so we are removing this Br as well as this hydrogen. And then now, after removing them, these carbons, now I have said they are now going to have only 3 bonds between them. So after removing those two, imagine it guys, it's just like this. There's no other bond between them. So that is why we decided to put a double bond on them, so that these carbons can be stable and they can have 2 bonds between them. Okay, but now the question is, just when we went to the break here, we had something like this. We removed the hydrogen from carbon number 3. If you can notice guys, this is carbon 1, this is carbon 2, this is carbon 3, this is carbon 4. So the hydrogen that we have removed during this elimination process, it is the hydrogen from carbon number 3. We didn't remove the hydrogen from carbon number 1. So basically, you guys still remember the Markovnikov's rule, right? When it comes to addition reactions, since we did the Markovnikov's rule last time, what did we say about Markovnikov's rule when we were doing addition reactions? We say that during addition reactions, the hydrogen always adds to the carbon that has more hydrogens. This is during addition reactions, right? We say that when we are adding our hydrogen, we always add our hydrogen to a carbon with more hydrogens. That was Markovnikov's rule. So when we are doing dehydrohalogenation, we have got a similar principle. But now we are doing it for dehydrohalogenation. So it's not going to be the same, but it's a similar principle. How does that principle work, and what is the name of the principle? So the rule that we are going to use, it is Zaitsev rule. So we have got Zaitsev rule. Zaitsev's rule. So whenever we want to do a dehydrohalogenation, we need to obey Zaitsev rules. And Zaitsev rule says that when removing, okay, normally let's just say during the elimination reactions. So here basically during elimination reactions. So when we are doing elimination reactions, or when we are removing something from the alkane or haloalkane or whatever it is that we have. So during elimination reactions, the hydrogen removed, or the removed hydrogen, the hydrogen removed must be, oh, the hydrogen must be removed. Hey guys, this English thing is not mine. The hydrogen must be removed. Let me not say the hydrogen removed must. The hydrogen removed, or the hydrogen must be removed. So our hydrogen must be removed from where? From the carbon. So it must be removed from the carbon with less hydrogen. So with less hydrogens. So this is now known as the Zaitsev's rule. So we have Markov-Nikov's rule, the one that we used to apply when we were doing addition reactions. Remember guys, when we were doing hydrohalogenation, we applied Markov-Nikov's rule. But when we are doing dehydrohalogenation, or when we are doing the opposite of addition reactions, when we are eliminating, basically when we are doing elimination reactions, during elimination reactions, the hydrogen must definitely be removed from the carbon with less hydrogens. It must be removed from the carbon that has got fewer hydrogens. Okay, so that we can form a major product. So let me just complete my statement and say, to form a major product. To form a major product. So basically, if I want to form a major product, I have to follow Zaitsev rule. I have to remove the hydrogen. Actually, here this is dehydrohalogenation. We are removing a hydrogen as well as a halogen. So for me to be able to form a major product, I should remove the hydrogen from the carbon that has got fewer hydrogens, or that has got less hydrogens, that has got a small number of hydrogens. And I'm sure you guys know how to count the number of hydrogens on a carbon. So for example, if we go to carbon 1 has got 3 hydrogens. It's got 1, 2, 3 hydrogens. When we go to carbon 2 has got 1 hydrogen. When we go to carbon 3 has got 2 hydrogens bonded to it. And when you go to carbon 4 is bonded to 4 or to 3 hydrogens, I mean. Okay, so you can just count the number of hydrogens bonded to each carbon. Then you can choose which one to remove so that you can form a major product. And you guys remember we said that the major product, it is the product that you find more in your reaction. Okay, so you would have a major product and you also have a minor product. But the major product, it is the product that you find more in your reaction. That's why you say it's a major product. You will find more of it in your products, basically. So here, out of all these hydrogens, we chose to do what? We chose to eliminate the hydrogen on carbon 3, because before we went to the break, I said that we are going to remove our halogen, which is Br. So we removed our halogen here, in this case, which is Br. And we also removed a hydrogen. Where did we remove the hydrogen? We removed the hydrogen from carbon number 3. Why didn't we remove it on carbon number 1? Because during elimination reaction, according to Zaitsev rule, during elimination reaction, for us to be able to form the major product, what must happen? The hydrogen must be removed from the carbon with less hydrogens, or with a fewer hydrogens. Okay, so basically, in other ways, people like to phrase this Zaitsev rule using general terms. They usually say that the poor gets poorer. So the poor gets poorer. The poor gets poorer. That's what this rule you can think of. You can just memorize your rule by saying the poor gets poorer. So the carbon with the fewer hydrogen, it is the one that is going to be removed a hydrogen from. So the carbon that has got less hydrogen, it is the one that is going to lose a hydrogen during this dehydrohalogenation process. So here, what did we do? We removed the hydrogen where? From carbon number 3, because carbon number 3 has got fewer hydrogens compared to carbon 1 and carbon 4. If you look at carbon 4, it has got 3 hydrogens bonded to it. It's like 1, 2, 3 hydrogens. If you look at carbon 1, it has got 3 hydrogens bonded to it. It's 1, 2, 3. But if you look at carbon number 3 has got only 2 hydrogens. So that is why we eliminate, that is why we remove 1 hydrogen from carbon number 3. We cannot remove this hydrogen from carbon number 2, guys. This one, we cannot remove it, because from carbon number 2, we are already going to remove the Br. So you cannot remove the Br, which is your halogen, as well as the hydrogen on the same carbon. You are not supposed to do that. So when you are doing these elimination reactions, at least look for any other carbons that has got the less number of hydrogens and remove from it. So the one with less hydrogens will lose. The one with less hydrogen will lose a what? The carbon with less hydrogen, it will lose a hydrogen during this process. So this product that we have formed here, this alkene that we have formed here, we say that this is a major product. So we say that this is a major product. Why is it a major product? Because we have formed it by following Zaitsev rule. We have chosen to remove the hydrogen from a carbon that has got a fewer hydrogens already, rather than removing it from maybe carbon 1, which has got a whole 3 hydrogens, or carbon 4, which has got a 3 hydrogens as well. So rather, we chose to remove the hydrogen from the carbon that is having less hydrogens, which is carbon number 3. So do you guys see how the major product work in elimination reactions? Do you understand, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then now what happens? So this is your major product, right? We are still going to write the structural formula of a minor product as well, because you can still try to make a minor product. Okay. So basically here, this hydrogen, since we are eliminating it, this H that we are eliminating, it can actually go and join with the OH there, because you can see that we have got NaOH, right, as our base. So our base is NaOH. You can still use any other base such as a KOH. It can still work. So this hydrogen here, it will go and attach to this OH after elimination. So that will be able to form us something like H2O. Because remember, guys, that H, if you are combining one hydrogen with OH, you are going to get 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, because it's like OH and then you are combining it with hydrogen. So we are now having 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. That makes H2O. So one of the products that we have, so here in this case, one of the products that we have during dehydrohalogenation, it is water. That is one of the products, because this H actually bonds, or it joins with this OH from the sodium hydroxide. So it joins with the OH group there. That's why we end up having H2O. And then now, since here you can see that we are also removing the Br. So we are also removing the Br. We are also removing the Br. Remember, this is dehydrohalogenation. So this is dehydrohalogenation. So dehydrohalogenation here simply means that we are also removing the halogen, which is the Br. So this Br, it will later go and it will attach to the Na. So it means that we are going to attach Na with Br. So another product that we are going to have there is Na with Br. So this is the full reaction. If they give you 5 marks and then they say show the full reaction, the full elimination reaction from this haloalkane. The moment you realize that your haloalkane has got only 1 halogen, use a strong base such as NaOH. And then the other conditions that you can write here, you must always write the reaction conditions on the air, such as ethanol. So you need ethanol as a solvent. So you need ethanol as a solvent. So you need ethanol as a solvent, and you also need heat under reflux. Usually they write heat and then they write in bracket reflux. So when they say give the full reaction, give the full elimination reaction, you are supposed to take your haloalkane that is containing 1 halogen, you will react it with a strong base. You will react it with a strong base, a concentrated strong base. And after reacting it with a concentrated strong base, what will happen? The hydrogen will be removed. If you want to form a major product, if you want to form a major product, you would have to follow Zaitsev's rule, meaning that you would have to do what? You would have to remove the hydrogen from the carbon with fewer hydrogens. So let's say now we want to ignore Zaitsev's rule and try to form a minor product, not a major product. Let's say now I just take a compound like this, and then I've got Cl, for example, This is a haloalkane, and you can see, guys, that my haloalkane here, it is strictly having one halogen. Do you guys see the halogen there, which is the Cl?
Yes.
Yes, there is a Cl there. That is one halogen. So you need to do a dehydrohalogenation. So you can either use NaOH or maybe you can use KOH. This time let us use KOH. If you use KOH here, you know that you are going to proceed with your reaction, and your reaction here would require ethanol as a solvent. Remember, you'd require ethanol as a solvent, and you would also require heat, and this heat must be under reflux. You would require heat under reflux. And the product that you're going to expect here, basically what are you going to do, let's just increase our chain a bit so that we can have at least 2 carbons there. So let's have CH. So at this point, this is your haloalkane, and let's say now you don't want to form a major product. Let us say you want to form a minor product. So here you want to form a minor product. So if you want to form a minor product, which hydrogen are you going to remove here? Which hydrogen are you going to remove? Because remember, it's dehydrohalogenation. You must remove a hydrogen and the halogen. The halogen is definitely going to be removed, which is the Cl. But now we have got many hydrogens here. Which one are you going to remove if you want to form a minor product and not a major product?
I think number 3, sir.
Number 3. You want to form a minor product, opposite of a major product. You don't want to do the same thing as we did here. And so when we were forming a major product, we said, you remove the hydrogen from a carbon with smaller or with fewer hydrogens. The poorer gets poor. Remember, the poor gets poor. So you take away a hydrogen atom from a carbon that is already having less hydrogens. That is if you want to form a what? A major product. But now let us say I want to form a minor product. It means that I would have to do the opposite of what I just said. So which hydrogen do you think I should remove?
So you can take number 4 or number 1.
We can take number 1, right? We will take number 1 because number 4 is too far away. We need our carbon to be at least closer to the Cl here. So we can remove the hydrogen from carbon number 1. That's excellent. So here we are removing our hydrogen from carbon number 1 because we are trying to do the opposite of Zaitsev rule. Zaitsev rule says that if we want to form a major product during elimination reactions, we need to take away the hydrogen from the carbon that is having less hydrogens, fewer hydrogen atoms. But now we want to form a minor product, the product that will be less in your reaction. Like there won't be a lot of that product in your reaction. Okay, there will be like a smaller amount of that product. That's why we say it's a minor product. So for you to form a minor product, you need to remove the hydrogen from the carbon that has got more hydrogens, because we're doing the opposite of Zaitsev rule. You guys all understand here?
Yes, I got it.
Yes, what about others? Do you guys understand here what we are doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have removed now, but now when we're removing our hydrogen, we removed it from a carbon that is having more hydrogens. So we are doing the opposite of Zaitsev rule. Okay, so basically after removing the hydrogen and the Cl, so we remove the hydrogen and our halide or our halogen is the Cl. So this is dehydrohalogenation. We remove the hydrogen, we remove the Cl. So now these 2 carbons are now left with only 3 bonds around them. So for them to be stable, they cannot have 3 bonds around them. So what needs to happen? What needs to happen?
I think we must add the double bond.
Yes, yes, exactly. We must add a double bond between them so that each and every one of them would have 4 bonds around it. So now this now becomes an alkene. It was an alkane. It was an alkane. Now it becomes an alkene. Do you guys all see that?
Yes.
And then our other product that we are going to have here, guys, remember we don't only have just the minor product or the major product, because this is our minor product, we know, but we also have got other byproducts. So we have got byproducts. So byproducts are just other products that are formed at the side, not our product that we are focusing on. Remember, guys, we said that the H will always go to the what? To the OH. Remember, the H will always go to the OH. So it's like hydrogen going to OH group, that will give us H2O. So hydrogen going to an OH group, that will give us H2O. So here, basically here, we are going to have plus H2O. So our elimination reactions will always have H2O as a product, no matter what. A byproduct, you say it's a byproduct. And then this Cl, where is it going to go, guys? The Cl, where do you think the Cl is going to go?
It's going to form up with the potassium to form potassium chloride.
Yes, this Cl will go to the potassium. Remember, guys, the halogen, it goes to this first part, then the hydrogen will go to the OH. Always we form water at the end of the day, but the halogen, it always attacks this metal, because here we can have sodium or we can have potassium. We can have Na or we can have K. Both of those are metals. We use those metals. So basically this Cl, it can go to K, and if we have got K and Cl, that's like KCl, it's potassium chloride. So this H2O and potassium chloride, we say that these are byproducts. So these are known as byproducts. These are just side products that are formed during the process. But here, this is our minor product. Because we wanted to form a minor product, we did not follow Zaitsev rule. So here, we didn't follow Zaitsev rule. Do you guys get this? How to
Yes,
get this? Okay. So here, we did not follow Zaitsev rule. That is why we formed a minor product. Okay, yeah, so that's it about dehydrogenation. This is by far the most important reaction that you should know. Out of all of them, this one, it is the one that needs you to have like multiple products. You've got a major, you've got a minor, but in addition to that, you also have got byproducts as well. So please, guys, know this reaction. We usually question it for 5 marks. This reaction is an elimination reaction. You can have a major product or you can have a minor product, depending on whether you followed Zaitsev rule or you didn't follow it. And then you're going to have byproducts. And always water is supposed to be part of your byproducts. No matter what, you must always have H2O as a byproduct. And then this NaBr is a salt. We say that it's a salt. Are we together, guys? Okay. So now let's do the last elimination reactions. So we have got dehydration. Okay, so dehydration, it is just the opposite of hydration. Remember, guys, when we were doing addition reactions, I told you about hydration of alkenes. When you are hydrating alkenes, it means that you are adding water to alkenes. That is dehydration. That is hydration, I mean, the addition one. But now when you are eliminating, we are doing the opposite. So dehydration, we are removing. So here, we are removing water. Okay, so we are removing water. Remember, we were adding water. If we are hydrating, it means that we're adding water. But when we are doing dehydration, or when we are removing water, we say that is dehydration. And dehydration here, it actually happens on alcohols. So dehydration elimination reaction, it happens on what? On alcohols. So alcohols undergo dehydration. Alcohols undergo dehydration. So dehydration simply means that we are removing water. And then the conditions, the reaction conditions that we need so that this reaction can take place. can take place, we need certain reaction conditions. So for dehydration to take place, the first thing that we'll need an acid. So we'll always need an acid, and preferably most of the times the acid that we use is sulfuric acid, H2SO4. So we always need H2SO4 for us to be able to do dehydration reaction. So for us to do dehydration reaction, we need a concentrated acid catalyst. So we'll need a concentrated acid catalyst. Remember guys, the difference between concentrated and dilute. Concentrated, it means that it has got less water. Dilute, it means that it has got more water. So we need a concentrated acid catalyst, and then the catalyst that we usually use, it is H2SO4, sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid, or we can use H3PO4, phosphoric acid. So you can use a sulfuric acid or you can use phosphoric acid. These two are what? These two are concentrated acid. Concentrated acid. They serve as catalyst, and this acid must be in excess. So there must be more of this acid. So we need it to be in excess. When you say that it is in excess, it simply means that there is more than enough. So there must be more than enough of this acid catalyst. It can either be H2SO4 or they can use H3PO4. So dehydration, we start with an alcohol. So we start with an alcohol. And our alcohol, remember, an alcohol must have an OH group, a hydroxyl group. So my alcohol must have a hydroxyl group. For example, this is 1-propanol. This is 1-propanol. So we have got 1-propanol here, and this is an alcohol, and I want to dehydrate the alcohol. I want to remove water from it. That is what I'm trying to say. I want to dehydrate it, or I want to remove water from it. So basically, I'm not going to add anything to the reactants because I'm removing water. So when I'm removing water, guys, it means that I'm going to remove an OH. That's the first thing. I'm going to remove an OH. And I'm also going to remove an H. So I'm going to remove an OH as well as an H. So when I'm removing water, I remove both a hydroxyl group, the OH, as well as a hydrogen. That is what it means to dehydrate. That is what it means to remove H2O. Because remember guys, H2O, it is made up of hydrogen bonded to OH. So if I'm saying that I'm doing dehydration, it simply means here I'm doing what? I'm removing a hydrogen as well as an OH. So basically, if I remove that, I'm going to remain with my compound in this way. This is my compound. CH. Okay, let me just write the H here. So here, what did I do? I have removed the H here. Because remember guys, there was an H here at first, then here there was an OH on carbon number 1. This was a primary alcohol, but I removed an H here on carbon number 2. I removed the OH on carbon number 1. So now these two carbons from which I removed these groups, they are now only remaining with 3 bonds alone, and 3 bonds is not enough. For a carbon to be stable, it must have 4 bonds surrounding it, a total. So we need to add another bond. Just as before, we just add another bond between them. Now it becomes a double bond. It's now an alkene. So this is now an alkene. So we have converted our alcohols into alkenes. So we have taken our alcohols, then we've made them, or we have changed them to be alkenes. But the conditions that were required for us to do that, we required H2SO4. You can use H3PO4, but this must be your catalyst. It must be your catalyst. The other conditions that you need also, this acid catalyst, it must be hot basically. So the other condition that you're going to require there, it is heat. So basically, also another reaction condition that you require, it is heat. So this dehydration reaction cannot take place without heat. So there must be heat. So whenever you are doing this reaction, you either do it in a place where there is heat. You cannot do this reaction in a cold place. There must be heat, and you must also use the sulfuric acid as a catalyst. So this is an alkene. And then the other product that we are also going to have is going to be plus H2O, because we have removed water, right? So water becomes part of our products. Basically, this H, I'm sure we have removed this H, and we also removed the OH, so they will just join in together. And when they join in together like this, they are going to form a bond, making us to have H2O. So basically, we now say that we have what? We have done dehydration. We have dehydrated our alcohol. This is known as dehydration of alcohols. So basically, dehydration, guys, it also follows the Zaitsev rule. Every elimination reaction, it must follow the Zaitsev rule as well. So if I give you, for example, let's just say I give you a secondary alcohol like this. Let's say, for example, I give you a secondary alcohol like this, and I put an OH here. I put an OH here, and then I put a bunch of hydrogens. Do you guys see that this is a secondary alcohol? Are you guys all able to see that? Are we seeing it, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so this is a secondary alcohol. So in this secondary alcohol that I have, I want to dehydrate this alcohol. So once I just put an arrow like this, and then I just put some conditions. Maybe I say here I put H3PO4, and I write this is a catalyst in a bracket. This cat simply means that it's a catalyst. And then I also put heat. What's this thing doing now? Okay, so I also put heat as well as a reaction condition. So just from looking at the reaction conditions, guys, you must be able to identify the type of reaction. That is why you are supposed to understand and know these reaction conditions. So I give you a secondary alcohol, and I put this H3PO4 as a catalyst. So you must already know that this is dehydration that will take place, because dehydration happens on alcohols. Alcohols undergo dehydration. So once you're just given an incomplete thing, maybe you are just given an alcohol like this, and they put an acid catalyst, and they put some heat as a reaction condition, it means that this is dehydration reaction. You must know that, because I've already taught you all the conditions for all reactions, right? So you don't confuse this to any other reaction, because you know that alcohols can undergo elimination reaction, which is dehydration. The type of elimination that they are undergoing is dehydration, and the conditions necessary for that to happen, it is H3PO4, or you can use H2SO4. These are concentrated acid catalysts, and you need an excess amount of those. So there must be a lot of sulfuric acid, H2SO4. There must be a lot of phosphoric acid, which is H3PO4. It acts as a catalyst. Remember, a catalyst, guys, it increases the rate of the reaction without getting used up. So we are going for a 10 minutes break. Your task here, it is for you guys to give me the major product and the minor product that are formed from this reaction. I give you a secondary alcohol just to give you a bonus. This is 2-butanol, or you can say this is butan-2-ol. So 2-butanol is being treated with H3PO4 as a catalyst, and there's some heat there. So write the structural formula for the major product, and also write the structural formula for the minor product. That is the question. Write the structural formula for the major product, and after that write the structural formula for the minor product. We'll come back after 10 minutes, and you guys will give me those those products.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Edu-ca-te is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
Yeah, so I gave you a task, guys. I gave you this alcohol, which is 2-butanol. So the alcohol that I gave you is 2-butanol, and the question was, we are going to treat 2-butanol using these reaction conditions. This is 2-butanol, and we are using these 2 reaction conditions. We've got H3PO4 as well as heat. Yeah, H3PO4 as well as heat. So I'm sure you guys can see that this is definitely going to be the reaction, this dehydration reaction. So now I told you guys, I assigned you to give me the major and the minor product from this dehydration reaction. So what is the major product that you found?
For major, it's CH.
Okay.
I'll say the name.
Okay, you can just give me the name. Okay, let me just write it. CH3.
It's gonna be yes, and then C,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1 carbon,
1 carbon.
and
Mm-hmm.
then put double bond in between,
Mm-hmm.
and then CH, like 3 hydrogen bond.
Is it complete like this?
No,
What's wrong?
down there, please put the hydrogens.
Yes, we have a hydrogen here, right? Do you guys see this? We all see, guys, the major product. Do we all agree that this is the major product indeed?
There is you cannot put the other. You must take the other one to the second one.
We have 2 hydrogens, right? Or you can put it down anyway. You can put it down or you can put it up, guys. It's still the same. You can write it down here.
Okay.
You can write it down here or you can put it up there. But as long as them. So let's see, guys, how this came to be. So here, I think Lusanda, I'm just going to try and interpret what you did, because you did get the correct major product. Remember, guys, it is compulsory for us to remove the OH. We'll definitely remove the OH, and we are also going to remove the H. But the question is, where are you going to remove the H? Because here we've got carbon 1, we've got carbon 2, we've got carbon 3, and we've got carbon 4. Now the question is, you have got 2 options. You can either remove the H, you can either remove the hydrogen from carbon 1 or from carbon 3, because these are the carbons that are surrounding this carbon 2 with the OH group. So you can either remove from carbon 1 or from carbon 3. And then now my question is, if you want to form a major product, which one are you going to remove from? That is when we bring in Zaitsev rule. Remember Zaitsev rule, it states that in order to form a major product during an elimination reaction, what must happen? The hydrogen must be removed from the carbon that has got fewer hydrogens. If you compare carbon 1 and carbon 3, carbon 1 has got 3 hydrogens. 1, 2, 3. It has got 3 hydrogens. That is your carbon 1, like 1, 2, 3 hydrogens. So there are 3 hydrogens on carbon number 1. But when you go to carbon number 3 has got 2 hydrogens. You guys can see that carbon number 3 has got only 2 hydrogens. It's 1, 2. Okay, you skip carbon number 2, guys, because on carbon number 2 you are removing the OH group. So you will not remove another, you will not remove this hydrogen, guys. This hydrogen on carbon 2, you cannot remove it, because already on carbon number 2 we are removing the OH group. Okay, already on carbon 2 we are removing the OH group. So basically you can only remove hydrogens from carbon number 1 or carbon number 3. But if you look at carbon number 1, it has got 3 hydrogens, carbon number 3 has got 2 hydrogens. And for you to form a major product, when you are following Zaitsev rule during elimination reaction, you must remove the hydrogen from the carbon that has got fewer hydrogens. If we compare carbon 1 and carbon 3, which one has got less hydrogens in it? Carbon 3, right? Because it has got 2 of them. But carbon 1 has got 3 hydrogens, like 1, 2, 3. So basically we're going to eliminate the hydrogen from carbon 3. This hydrogen from carbon 3. So when we eliminate it, we eliminate the H and we eliminate the OH. So now it means that we are going to remove these 2 bonds. So carbon 2 and carbon 3, our carbon 2 and carbon 3 will be left with fewer bonds. That's why we have to put a double bond between them, just as we've been doing before. So now this now becomes an alkene. So here we are synthesizing alkenes, or we are producing alkenes. Our products are alkenes. Okay. And then what is the yes, plus water as a byproduct, of course. So let's just start with the major product. And now what is the minor product? Give me the minor product. What is the minor product going to be like?
Carbon and 3 hydrogen.
Carbon bonded to 3 hydrogens. Yes.
And then carbon with 2 hydrogen.
Carbon bonded to 2 hydrogens.
Carbon with 1 hydrogen.
Carbon with 1 hydrogen.
And double bond. And then carbon with 2 hydrogen.
Carbon with 2 hydrogens. Excellent. So this is our minor product. So this is our minor product. Do you guys all see what's happening now?
Yes.
So to form our minor product, we are just going to do the opposite of Zaitsev rule. I'm sure Zaitsev rule was telling us that when we are going to remove here, obviously the OH, you are definitely going to remove it. But now when you are going to remove the hydrogen, you should remove it from the carbon that has got fewer hydrogens. That is what Zaitsev rule says to form a major product. So to form a minor product, we do the opposite of Zaitsev rule. We do the opposite of Zaitsev rule. So it means that we are going to remove the hydrogen from carbon 1 rather, because carbon 1 has got more hydrogens. We shouldn't remove it according to Zaitsev rule, but we are doing the opposite of Zaitsev rule because we want to form the minor product. So we are going to remove this hydrogen from carbon number 1 because carbon number 1 has got more hydrogen. So we are actually opposing what Zaitsev is telling us. So if we remove this hydrogen from this point, before you even have a double bond, would have something like this. H, let's just say H. Let me just write it exactly as it is here from this diagram so that you guys can even get more clarity. Let me just write my H down here and write my H down here. So do you see here, guys, that after removing the OH, because here we are going to remove the OH, which is the hydroxyl group here. So we removed the OH here, minus the OH. So this carbon doesn't have the OH anymore, which is carbon number 2 in the product. And then we removed the H from carbon number 1 in the reactant. So carbon number 1 on the product, Ngalena, it doesn't have the H anymore. I'm sure with an H on top, we removed it. But now, since these carbons are now lacking, they are now having fewer bonds. They are now having only 3 bonds. They will be forced to form a double bond between them. So they will form a double bond between them. Yeah, this is the same way as I wrote it at first, guys. Still the same thing. So this is the minor product. And what is the byproduct that we are going to have?
Water.
Water is our byproduct. So the extra product that we're going to have there is water. So basically, one of the reasons that make us to use concentrated sulfuric acid, that's the best one. Usually, concentrated sulfuric acid is the best one, most preferable one. It is because sulfuric acid is a dehydrating agent. So they can ask you, why are you using sulfuric acid as the catalyst? Okay, so sulfuric acid is more suitable because it is a what? It is a dehydrating agent. It's a dehydrating agent. So sulfuric acid is commonly used in these dehydration reactions because it's a dehydrating agent. We use it to dehydrate. We use it to get rid of water molecules. So it's a dehydrating agent. It serves as a dehydrating agent. If they can ask you, why would you prefer using H2SO4? It serves as a dehydrating agent. It is able to remove the water molecules from the alcohol so that we can form a what? We can form an alkene. Is this understandable, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so we are done with addition and elimination reactions.